The ultimatum did not arrive with a warning shot. It arrived like a tax notice, cold, absolute, and utterly indifferent to whether humanity could pay. No ceremony, no fanfare, no diplomatic niceties to soften the blade. Just a massive alien vessel dropping out of hyperspace above New Geneva, humanity's most prosperous colony world. One moment the sky was clear. Next, the crystal spires of an empire older than human civilization hung in orbit like a splinter of frozen lightning. Admiral Sarah Chen stood on the bridge of the UES Defiance, her weathered hands pressed flat against the command rail. 40 years of service had taught her to stay still when the universe decided to test humanity's resolve. 40 years of watching screens flicker with bad news, of steadying her voice while young officers panicked, of making decisions that would send people to their deaths. This was different. The alien ship was 15 kilometers long. It pulsed with energy signatures that made human reactors look like dying candles. Its hull was a cathedral of arrogance. Crystalline spires twisting around a core of pure, contained violence. Technology that made everything humanity had ever built look like stone axes and fire. "Size estimate," she said. Her voice did not waver. Captain Marcus Reeves checked his readings twice, then a third time. When he spoke, the tremor was barely audible. 15 kilometers, Admiral. Energy signatures are off the charts. Whatever powers that thing could probably crack a moon in half. Sarah nodded. She had expected worse. She had prepared herself for worse. What she had not prepared for was the message the ship had been broadcasting for 3 hours straight. A message demanding to speak with human leadership. A message that, when finally opened, would change everything. She had been selected to represent humanity because she was steady, because she had survived rebellions and pirate raids and the slow, grinding attrition of deep space patrol, because she had never once raised her voice in anger on a bridge. But as she stared at the alien vessel, she felt something cold settle in her chest. A recognition. This was not a negotiation. This was a performance. And humanity had been cast in the role of the conquered. "Open a channel," she ordered. The view screen flickered. Static. Then the image resolved into something that had stepped out of humanity's strangest nightmares. 8 feet tall. Skin like polished obsidian, so dark it seemed to drink the light around it. Eyes that glowed with inner fire. Twin coals burning in a face that had no expression Sarah could read. It wore no uniform, no armor. It simply existed, radiating authority like a star radiated heat. The translation matrix activated. The voice that came through was smooth as silk and twice as dangerous. "I am Ambassador Keffel of the Galactic Empire. You will address me with appropriate respect." Sarah straightened her uniform. She stepped forward until she was centered in the frame. She met those burning eyes and did not look away. "I am Admiral Sarah Chen of the United Earth Space Command. Welcome to human space, Ambassador. We're honored by your visit." Keffel's expression did not change. The eyes burned brighter for a fraction of a second, then dimmed. "Honor is earned, human. You have not earned it. I come bearing the will of the Empire. You will listen." The alien gestured. Holographic displays erupted in the air around it. Star charts, colony locations, resource surveys, population centers. Sarah's blood ran cold as she realized how much the Empire already knew about humanity. They had mapped everything. They had studied everything. They had decided, long before this moment, exactly what humanity was worth. "Your species has expanded beyond your birth world," Keffel continued. "You have claimed 17 systems, established mining operations, begun terraforming projects. This expansion ends now." Sarah blinked. "I'm sorry. Are we encroaching on your territory? We had no idea. We would have." "You misunderstand." The voice cut through her like a blade. "Absolute. uninterested in clarification. All space belongs to the Empire. Your existence is tolerated only as long as it serves our interests. Those interests now require your tribute. The holograms shifted. Cargo manifests. Resource requirements. Numbers that made Sarah's stomach drop. 70% of industrial output. 50% of agricultural production. 30% of the human population. Designated for labor assignments. Full technical specifications for every human technology, from fusion drives to medical scanners. Sarah did the math in her head. The tribute would destroy human civilization within a decade. Starvation, economic collapse, the breakdown of every system that held their species together. And that was before they even started talking about the people. Captain Reeves stepped forward. His face was flushed with anger, his hands clenched at his sides. You're talking about enslaving our entire species. Keffel turned those burning eyes on him. The temperature on the bridge seemed to drop. Slavery implies you have value beyond your labor. You do not. You are children playing with forces you cannot comprehend. The Empire offers you structure, purpose, and the privilege of serving something greater than your primitive civilization. Sarah felt the tension on the bridge ratchet up another notch. She could hear her crew breathing. Too fast. Too shallow. She needed to steady them. She needed to steady herself. "What if we refuse?" she asked quietly. The silence that followed was worse than any threat. "Then you will be eliminated," Keffel replied. "Your colonies will be sterilized. Your worlds will be repurposed. Your species will become a footnote in the Empire's historical records." Sarah stared at the images on the holographic displays. Burned planets, empty systems, civilizations reduced to dust because they had refused to kneel. "You're talking about genocide." "I am talking about efficiency." Keffel gestured again. The displays showed more worlds, more death, more silence where life had once been. The Empire has existed for 10,000 years. We have encountered 3,247 species. 47 chose cooperation. The rest chose elimination. Sarah felt the weight of that number. 3,200 species wiped out, not because they were threats, but because they were inconvenient, because the Empire had decided they did not fit. 47, she repeated. 47, Keffel confirmed. "Your species is not special, Admiral. You are not unique. You are simply the latest in a long line of civilizations that must either adapt or be adapted. How long do we have to decide?" "You have already decided." Keffel's eyes flared brighter. "I see it in your eyes, Admiral. You are like all the others, too proud to accept your place in the natural order." The alien straightened. The holographic displays vanished. "Very well. You have 7 of your days to prepare your tribute. On the 8th day, our collection fleet will arrive. If you have not complied, the purification will begin immediately." The transmission cut off. The bridge fell into stunned silence. Sarah stared at the blank view screen. The alien ship was still there, hanging in orbit like a sword suspended over New Geneva. She could feel her crew watching her. Waiting, she turned to face them. Good people, professionals, men and women who had dedicated their lives to protecting humanity. They deserved the truth. "Priority Alpha communications to all human worlds and fleets," she said. "Emergency session of the Colonial Defense Council." She looked at Marcus Reeves. "Start running deep scans on that ship. I want to know everything about it. Every energy fluctuation, every structural weak point, every pattern in its movement. We have 7 days. Use them." The bridge crew jumped into action. Consoles lit up. Voices overlapped. The ship hummed with renewed purpose. Sarah retreated to her ready room. The door sealed behind her, and for the first time in hours, she let her hands shake. She sat down heavily in her chair and stared at the wall. 3,200 species, 47 survivors. Humanity had always known this day might come. Ever since they had achieved faster-than-light travel, the possibility of hostile aliens had been discussed in military briefings and government think tanks. They had run simulations. They had developed contingency plans. They had told themselves they were ready. They were not ready. Her communications panel chimed. Director Alina Vasquez appeared on the screen, her face grim. As head of the Colonial Defense Council, Alina coordinated military responses across all human worlds. She was the closest thing humanity had to a wartime leader, and she looked like she had aged a decade in the past hour. Sarah, we monitored the transmission. How bad is it? Worse than bad, Sarah replied. They're not negotiating. They're dictating terms for our surrender. And if we refuse... She pulled up the images Keffel had shown. Burned worlds. Empty space. They've done this before, Alina. Thousands of times. Alina was quiet for a long moment. When she spoke, her voice was carefully controlled. The council is convening in 2 hours. We need recommendations. Sarah leaned forward. I need time to analyze their ship, their technology. But Alina, we can't give them what they want. Even if we wanted to, the tribute would destroy our civilization. We'd be dead in a decade from starvation and resource depletion. So, what are you suggesting? Sarah had spent 40 years in the military. She had fought pirates and put down rebellions and defended colonies from raiders. She had never faced anything like this. The smart play was surrender. Try to negotiate better terms. Hope for mercy from an empire that had shown none to 3,000 species. But Sarah Chen had not become an admiral by making the smart play. I'm suggesting we find a way to fight back. Alina's eyes widened. Sarah, you saw that ship. One vessel could probably destroy our entire fleet. Maybe, but they're not expecting resistance. Every other species has either surrendered or been wiped out quickly. They've never faced sustained opposition from a species that refuses to quit. This is insane. This is human, Sarah corrected. We've been fighting impossible odds since we crawled out of caves. The Empire thinks we're just another primitive species. They're about to learn differently. She looked past Alina, out the viewport at the alien ship. Its crystalline spires gleamed with arrogant beauty. Its energy core pulsed with impossible power. It was everything humanity was not, and it had made one critical mistake. It had given them 7 days. The Colonial Defense Council meeting lasted 18 hours. Representatives from every human world participated via quantum communication. Their faces flickered on the main screen like ghosts, grim and exhausted before the debate even began. Sarah watched them from her position at the head of the table, her hands folded in front of her, her expression giving nothing away. She had spent the past 6 hours analyzing the alien vessel's scans. What she found was both encouraging and terrifying. The ship was incredibly advanced, powered by technology that humanity was centuries away from understanding. Its energy core operated on principles that made no sense to human physics. Its defensive systems could likely stop anything humanity could throw at it. Its weapons could probably crack a moon in half, but it was also alone, and it was arrogant. Lieutenant Commander Jackson, the ship's chief science officer, had compiled the data into a presentation that made Sarah's heart beat faster with every slide. The alien vessel was a diplomatic ship, heavily armed, yes, but designed for intimidation rather than actual combat. Its shields were formidable, but they had gaps, predictable patterns, energy fluctuations that followed a rhythm. One ship, Jackson had said, his voice trembling with barely suppressed excitement. One ship, and they parked it right where we could study it. Sarah nodded slowly. They think we're primitives. They're not expecting us to understand what we're looking at. They're wrong. The debate on the council screen raged. Some representatives argued for compliance, for buying time, for finding a way to negotiate better terms. Others argued for immediate evacuation, for scattering human civilization across the stars. For running, Sarah let them speak, let them exhaust themselves. Then she leaned forward and spoke. We cannot comply. Even if we wanted to, the tribute would destroy us within years. We would be a dead species walking, waiting for the Empire to finish the job. She activated the tactical display. The alien vessel appeared in holographic projection, its crystalline spires rotating slowly. We cannot run. The Empire has mapped our systems. They know where we are. They will find us wherever we go. She paused. Let the silence build. So we fight. Governor Martinez, from the Proxima colony, was the first to respond. His face was pale, but his voice was steady. How? You've seen their technology. We're outmatched in every measurable category. Measurable categories are exactly what they're counting on, Sarah replied. They fought thousands of species. All of them followed predictable patterns. They formed battle lines. They used energy weapons. They tried to match the Empire's technology with their own. And they all lost. She stood up. I walked to the holographic display, circled the alien vessel like a predator studying its prey. The Empire has never fought a species that thinks like humans. We don't follow patterns. We improvise. We adapt. We use whatever weapons we have, even if they're broken and primitive and barely functional. She turned to face the Council. Phase 1. We evacuate non-essential personnel from our outer colonies. We make it look like we're abandoning our positions in fear. We leave behind volunteer militia, hidden weapons, and enough infrastructure to make the Empire think they've won. Captain Reeves picked up the thread. Phase 2. We deploy our stealth ships throughout the system. Modified mining vessels with enhanced sensor packages and minimal weapons. They'll act as our eyes and ears, tracking the Empire's movements and relaying tactical data to our main fleet. Sarah resumed. Phase 3. We let them come to us. When their fleet arrives to collect tribute, they'll find apparently defenseless worlds and minimal resistance. They'll lower their guard. They'll make mistakes. And then, Governor Martinez asked, then we spring the trap. The next 5 days were a frenzy of preparation. Across human space, colonial militias worked around the clock. Mining ships were fitted with missile launchers. Cargo haulers were loaded with kinetic projectiles. Passenger transports were equipped with electronic warfare systems. Every ship that could fly was converted into a weapon. Commander Jake Morrison led the evacuation of the outer colonies. His fleet of transports made multiple runs, moving civilians to safety while leaving behind something the Empire would never expect. Volunteers, thousands of men and women who refused to run, militia members, retired soldiers, civilians who had never held a weapon in their lives, but who had decided that they would rather die fighting than live on their knees. It's not about winning, Morrison explained to his staff. It's about making them pay for every inch of space they take. It's about showing them that humanity doesn't surrender. Dr. Amanda Torres, the fleet's chief weapons specialist, worked with her team to develop new tactics. Human technology might be primitive by Empire standards, but it was also unpredictable. They're used to fighting species with technology similar to their own, she explained to a room full of engineers. Energy weapons, deflector shields, standardized tactics. They won't be expecting kinetic projectiles, traveling at significant fractions of light speed. They won't be expecting electromagnetic pulses that disable their coordination systems. They won't be expecting us to fight dirty. Her team nodded. They were exhausted, but they were also energized. For the first time since the ultimatum arrived, they felt like they had a chance. Sarah spent most of those 5 days on the bridge of the Defiance, watching the alien vessel through the view screen. It hadn't moved. It hadn't changed its position. It simply hung there, beautiful and terrible, waiting for humanity to surrender. She thought about the 3,000 species that had come before, the 47 that had survived. She thought about what made humanity different, what made them worth fighting for. She thought about her daughter, who lived in New Geneva, about the grandchildren she had never met, about the future that hung in the balance. "We will not be a footnote," she murmured to herself. "We will not be another burned planet." On the 6th day, the scans came back. The alien vessel was preparing for the arrival of the collection fleet. Its energy signatures were shifting. Its communication systems were active. "They're calling for backup," Jackson reported. "The collection fleet will arrive within 24 hours. Sarah nodded. "Then we're right on schedule." She turned to the tactical display. The system was covered in markers. Blue icons represent human vessels. Red icons represented the Empire. There were far more red icons than blue, but the blue icons were everywhere, hidden in asteroid fields, orbiting gas giants, drifting in the outer reaches of the system where no one would think to look. "We've done everything we can," Reeves said quietly. "Now we just have to wait." Sarah looked at him. She had known Marcus Reeves for 15 years. He was a good officer, a good man. He had a wife and 2 children on Earth. He had volunteered for this mission, knowing he might never see them again. "Thank you, Marcus," she said. "For what?" "For trusting me." He smiled. It was a tired smile, but it was genuine. "You've never led us wrong, Admiral. I don't expect you to start now." The collection fleet arrived on schedule. Sarah watched from the bridge of the Defiance as 30 massive vessels dropped out of hyperspace. Each ship was larger than anything in the human fleet. Each ship bristled with weapons and was armored with energy shields. They moved in perfect formation, synchronized and deadly. "My God," whispered Reeves. "How do we fight that?" "Carefully," Sarah replied. "All ships maintain radio silence. Wait for my signal." The alien fleet approached New Geneva in perfect formation, their weapons powering up as they prepared to enforce the Empire's will. Sarah held her breath as the enemy ships moved into position. She could feel her crew watching her, waiting. Then Ambassador Keffel's voice echoed across all frequencies. "Humans of this system, your time has expired. Present your tribute or face annihilation." Sarah activated the general communication system. Her voice was steady, cold, carrying the weight of 40 years of service and the defiance of an entire species. "This is Admiral Chen. We have your answer." She nodded to her tactical officer. Across the system, hidden human vessels began to move. The first attack came from Captain Louet's stealth ship, hidden in an asteroid field. A spread of kinetic projectiles launched at tremendous velocity, aimed not at the alien ships, but at their formation. The projectiles passed between the vessels, forcing them to break their perfect arrangement to avoid collision. "What are they doing?" Reeves asked. "Disrupting their coordination," Sarah replied. Now the second wave. Modified mining vessels emerged from behind a gas giant. Their cargo holds were filled with metal slugs accelerated by magnetic launchers. The projectiles struck the alien shields with tremendous force, causing energy fluctuations that disrupted their defensive systems. Keffel's voice crackled over the communications. "You dare resist the Empire. You will be destroyed." "We're not resisting," Sarah broadcast back. "We're fighting back. There's a difference." The alien fleet began to retaliate. Their energy weapons lashed out at the human vessels, but the humans weren't where the aliens expected them to be. Instead of forming battle lines, they scattered throughout the system, using asteroids and planetary bodies as cover. Commander Morrison's transport fleet, supposedly evacuating civilians, suddenly revealed hidden weapon systems. Missile launchers deployed from cargo bays, filling space with guided projectiles that overwhelmed the alien point defense systems. "Impossible." Keffel's voice carried a note of genuine surprise. "Your technology is primitive." "Our technology is human," Sarah replied. "We don't fight fair. We fight to win." The battle continued for hours. Human ships darted in and out of engagement range, never staying in one place long enough for the aliens to target them effectively. It was like watching a pack of wolves attack a herd of elephants, individually outmatched, but collectively deadly. And then Dr. Torres activated her special project, modified communication satellites that had been secretly positioned near the alien fleet. Instead of broadcasting messages, they emitted a focused electromagnetic pulse that disrupted the alien ship's coordination systems. The Empire's perfect formation dissolved into chaos as individual ships lost contact with their command structure. They were still dangerous, but they were no longer operating as a unified force. "All ships," Sarah broadcast, "execute Plan Delta." The human vessels began a coordinated attack pattern that would have been impossible for any other species. Instead of engaging the aliens directly, they targeted specific systems on each ship: sensors, communications, weapon mounts. It was precise, surgical, and utterly ruthless. Captain Loewe's stealth ship managed to get close enough to one of the alien vessels to launch a boarding pod. The dozen Marines inside weren't trying to capture the ship. They were trying to gather intelligence about Empire technology. "We're in," reported Sergeant Harris over the comm. "Their systems are incredibly advanced, but they're not expecting sabotage, planting charges on their main computer core." The explosion that followed didn't destroy the alien ship, but it crippled its ability to coordinate with the rest of the fleet. More importantly, it sent a message. Humans weren't just fighting. They were adapting, learning, and they were winning. Keffel's voice returned to the communications channel, but this time it carried a different tone. "Enough. We will withdraw for now." Silence followed Keffel's words. Sarah stood frozen on the bridge, her hand hovering over the communication panel. She had prepared for many outcomes, for a desperate last stand, for overwhelming defeat, for the slow death of humanity under the Empire's boot. She had not prepared for this. "We will withdraw for now," Keffel repeated, as if the alien itself could not quite believe what it was saying. Sarah found her voice. "You're retreating." The pause that followed was long enough to feel like a victory in itself. When Keffel spoke again, the smooth silk of its voice had developed an edge, a crack in the perfect composure. "We are reassessing the situation. Your species has shown unexpected capabilities." "Unexpected capabilities," Sarah repeated, letting the words hang in the air. "You mean we fought back instead of rolling over?" "The Empire does not retreat. Human. We adapt. We learn. We return." It was a threat disguised as a statement, a promise of future violence wrapped in bureaucratic language. But Sarah heard what Keffel was not saying. The Empire had never encountered resistance like this. The Empire had no framework for understanding what had just happened. "Then learn this," Sarah said, her voice carrying across every frequency, reaching every human vessel in the system. "This is what humans do. We adapt, we learn, and we never give up. Tell your Empire that." The alien fleet began withdrawing. Their damaged ships limped toward the edge of the system, their formation broken and scattered. The beautiful crystalline spires that had seemed so terrifying just hours ago now looked like broken glass. Sarah watched them go. She did not celebrate. She did not cheer. She simply stood at the command rail, her hands steady, her face expressionless. On the bridge behind her, the crew erupted. Cheers, laughter, tears. Marcus Reeves clapped his hands together and let out a breath he had been holding for 6 hours. "We actually did it," he said, his voice cracking. "We made them retreat." Sarah turned to face him. Her expression remained serious. "We bought time. Nothing more. They'll be back, and they'll be ready for our tactics next time." Reeves's smile faded. So, what do we do? Sarah looked past him, out the view screen at the stars. The alien fleet was disappearing into the darkness, their hyperspace signatures fading like dying embers. We get ready. We share what we learned with every human world. We build better ships, develop new tactics, and we prepare for the real war. She activated the ship's communication system. Her voice filled every human vessel in the system. This is Admiral Chen to all human vessels. Well done, people. You've just shown the galaxy that humanity doesn't kneel to anyone. The response was immediate. A flood of acknowledgments, cheers, promises. Sarah listened to them, letting the energy wash over her. She had earned this moment. They all had. But as she turned away from the communication panel, she felt something heavy settle in her chest. The victory had been tactical, not strategic. They had won a battle, not the war. And somewhere in the darkness, the Empire was already planning its response. She retreated to her ready room, the door sealed behind her, and she allowed herself to sit down, to close her eyes, to breathe. The images from the battle played behind her eyelids. Burning alien ships, exploding human vessels, the faces of the dead. She had lost good people today. Captain Louis's stealth ship had been destroyed in the final exchange. Sergeant Harris and her Marines were still on the crippled alien vessel, their status unknown. Dozens of other ships had been damaged or destroyed. They had won, but the cost had been terrible. Her communications panel chimed. Director Elena Vasquez appeared on the screen, her face streaked with tears. Behind her, Sarah could see the Colonial Defense Council chamber in chaos. People hugging. People are crying. People trying to process what had just happened. Sarah, Elena said, her voice barely above a whisper. We did it. We actually did it. Elena, listen to me. Sarah leaned forward, her voice urgent. This isn't over. This is just the beginning. The Empire will return with overwhelming force. They'll bring warships, not diplomatic vessels. They'll be ready for our tactics. We need to prepare. Elena's expression shifted. The tears stopped. The celebration faded. She was a leader, and leaders understood what the rest of the council did not. How long do we have? Unknown. Days. Weeks. Months. But not years. They won't give us time to rebuild. They'll come back, and they'll try to destroy us completely. Then what do we need? Sarah had been thinking about this since Keffel first mentioned the collection fleet, since she first saw the scans of the alien vessel, since she realized that humanity had a chance, however small, to survive. Everything. We need every available resource, every ship, every weapon, every scientist, every engineer. We need to accelerate our research programs and throw everything we have at developing countermeasures. Elena nodded slowly. I'll convene the council. We'll start mobilizing immediately. Good. And Elena. Yes. Get me Dr. Torres. I need her working on something. The call ended. Sarah stared at the blank screen for a long moment, then activated another channel. Dr. Torres, report to my ready room. Amanda Torres arrived within minutes. Her hair was disheveled. Her uniform was stained with grease, but her eyes were bright with the kind of energy that came from solving impossible problems. Admiral, you wanted to see me. Sarah gestured for her to sit. The alien ship, the one Sergeant Harris boarded. We lost communication with her team, but before we lost the signal, they managed to transmit some data. Torres leaned forward. What kind of data? Schematics, power distribution systems, communication protocols, and something else. Sarah pulled up a file on her display. They found a log, a record of every species the Empire has encountered, every civilization they've destroyed. Torres's face went pale. 3,247 species. 47 survived, Sarah said. I need to know how. I need to know what those 47 species did that the others didn't. I need to know if there's a pattern. Torres nodded slowly. It's a lot of data. It could take weeks to analyze. We don't have weeks. We have days. Maybe less. Work with Lieutenant Commander Jackson. Pull every available analyst. I want answers before the Empire comes back. Understood. Torres stood to leave, then paused. Admiral, what about Sergeant Harris? Is there any word? Sarah shook her head. We lost contact when the alien ship jumped to hyperspace. They could be anywhere. They could be dead. Torres swallowed hard. She was a good soldier. She was the best, Sarah said. Now get to work. The door sealed behind Torres. Sarah sat alone in her ready room, staring at the data on her display. The names of 3,000 species, the dates of their destruction, the methods the Empire had used. She noticed something, a pattern she had missed before. The Empire didn't destroy civilizations immediately. They always gave an ultimatum. They always demanded tribute. They always waited. It was a test, a way of determining which species were worth keeping and which were worth destroying. The 47 survivors had passed the test somehow. They had found a way to make themselves useful to the Empire, but humanity had refused the test. They had fought back instead. Sarah closed her eyes. She thought about her daughter in New Geneva, her grandchildren, the future she was fighting to protect. She thought about what kind of future that would be if humanity won. The Empire had existed for 10,000 years. It had conquered 3,000 species. It had technology that humanity couldn't even comprehend. It had resources and manpower and the weight of an entire galaxy behind it. Humanity had 47 combat vessels, a handful of modified mining ships, and the stubborn refusal to give up. It wasn't enough. It would never be enough. But it was all they had. The comm panel chimed again. This time it was Marcus Reeves. His face was pale, his expression grim. Admiral, we've picked up something on the long-range sensors. Sarah's blood ran cold. The Empire? No. Reeves shook his head. I don't know how to describe it. You need to see this. Sarah stood up and walked to the bridge. The crew was gathered around the main display, their faces a mixture of confusion and fear. What is it? Sarah asked. Reeves gestured to the display. We detected a signal. Coming from the direction the alien fleet retreated. It's not Empire technology. It's something else. Something else. Something older. Much older. Sarah stared at the display. The signal was faint, almost invisible, but it was there. A pulse of energy that didn't match any known pattern. Where is it coming from? Unknown. The signal appears to be coming from deep space, well beyond our current sensor range. Sarah felt a chill run down her spine. The Empire had been present in this region of space for 10,000 years. They had mapped every system. They had cataloged every species. But they hadn't found this signal. What do you think it means? Sarah asked. Reeves shook his head. I don't know, but I think the Empire doesn't know either. I think they're worried. Sarah looked at the signal. It was faint, distant, but it was there. Something else was out there. Something the Empire hadn't conquered. Something that might be humanity's only hope. She turned to her crew. Full analysis. I want to know everything about that signal. What it is. Where it's coming from. What does it mean? She looked back at the display. The war with the Empire was just beginning. But Sarah Chen had a feeling that humanity's fate was about to become much more complicated. The human vessels began to reform. Ships that had been scattered across the system, hiding in asteroid fields and behind gas giants, now emerged from their positions. Some were damaged. Some were running on emergency power. But all of them were still flying. Sarah watched them gather. She could see the names on their hulls, the scars of battle on their armor, the determination in their crews. They won today, against impossible odds, against an empire that had never lost. But they had lost something too, The illusion that humanity was alone, that the universe was empty and indifferent. The Empire had proven otherwise. And now this signal, this ancient pulse from the darkness. Sarah Chen was an admiral. She had fought pirates and put down rebellions and defended colonies from raiders. She had stared into the void and seen the face of an enemy that could destroy worlds. But she had also seen something else, something that made her heart beat faster with hope. She had seen the Empire retreat. She had seen the Empire hesitate. She had seen the Empire show fear. "Marcus," she said quietly, "do you think we can win this?" Reeves was silent for a long moment. Then he smiled. "Admiral, I think we already have." Sarah shook her head. "No. We won a battle. We made them pause. But the war..." She looked out at the stars, at the signal pulsing in the darkness, in the future that was rushing toward them. "The war is just beginning." The signal pulsed again, stronger this time, more insistent. Sarah Chen had spent 40 years in the military. She had learned to trust her instincts, and her instincts were telling her something that made her blood run cold. The Empire wasn't the only threat in the galaxy. Something else was waking up, and it was coming for them all. The signal consumed the next 48 hours. Sarah stood at the center of the Defiance's bridge, watching her crew work around her. Analysts hunched over displays. Engineers ran diagnostic after diagnostic. Scientists argued theories that none of them fully understood. The signal pulsed in the darkness. Faint, ancient, patient, and it was getting stronger. "We've ruled out natural phenomena," Lieutenant Commander Jackson reported, his voice hoarse from exhaustion. "No known stellar event produces this pattern. No known technology matches its signature." Sarah nodded slowly. "What about the Empire? Could it be one of their weapons? A trap?" Jackson shook his head. "We've analyzed everything we captured from their logs. This signal predates their civilization. By a lot." "How much?" "Thousands of years. Tens of thousands. Maybe more. The energy signature is consistent with technology that shouldn't exist." Sarah felt the weight of those words. Technology that shouldn't exist. A signal that had been waiting in the darkness long before the Empire rose to power. Long before humanity crawled out of the caves. "What does it say?" she asked. Jackson exchanged a glance with Dr. Torres. Both of them looked pale. Both of them looked like they had seen something they could not unsee. "We've managed to translate part of it," Torres said carefully. "The signal it's a warning. Or maybe a plea. It's hard to tell." "A warning about what?" Torres pulled up a holographic display. The image showed a star system. A beautiful system with multiple habitable worlds. The kind of system that civilizations fought over. "This is where the signal is coming from," Torres said. "We've identified the location. It's deep space, far beyond any human colony, but it's there." Sarah studied the image. The system looked unremarkable. A yellow star, 3 gas giants, a handful of rocky worlds. "What's there?" she asked. "We don't know, but whatever it is, it's been broadcasting this signal for at least 50,000 years. And the signal itself..." Torres paused. "It's a message from a civilization that no longer exists. A dead civilization. Not dead, something worse." Sarah felt a chill run down her spine. She had seen the Empire's records. 3,000 species destroyed. 47 survivors. She thought she understood what darkness looked like. She was wrong. "The signal contains a record," Torres continued. "A record of something that happened here. Something that destroyed a civilization that made the Empire look primitive." "What happened?" "War. A war between 2 factions. Both of them advanced beyond anything we can imagine. The fighting lasted for centuries. Entire star systems were destroyed. Species were exterminated. The scale of it..." Torres shook her head. "And then something else happened. Something that ended the war. something that caused both factions to abandon everything they had built. Sarah leaned forward. What? We don't know. The signal cuts off at that point. But the last transmission, it's a warning. A warning to anyone who finds this place. A warning to stay away. Sarah stared at the holographic display. The beautiful star system. The ancient signal. The warning from a civilization that had been destroyed by something it couldn't understand. She thought about the Empire. About Keffel's arrogance. About the 3,000 species that had been conquered. She thought about the signal. About the fear it represented. About the possibility that there were things in the universe worse than the Empire. And then she made a decision. Prepare a mission, she said. I want a ship ready to jump to that system within 12 hours. The bridge went silent. Everyone turned to stare at her. Admiral, Reeves said carefully, we just fought a battle against the Empire. We have damaged ships, depleted resources. We need time to recover. We need information, Sarah interrupted. The Empire is coming back. They'll bring more ships, better weapons. They'll be ready for everything we threw at them. We can't beat them in a straight fight. We need an edge. She pointed at the holographic display. That signal is an edge. It's the remnants of a civilization that was more advanced than anything we've ever encountered. If there's technology there, weapons, knowledge, anything that can help us survive. Reeves shook his head. Admiral, the warning. Whatever destroyed that civilization might still be there. We could be walking into a trap. We could be waking something up. Sarah looked at him. She had known Marcus Reeves for 15 years. He was a good officer, a cautious one, the kind of man who thought before he acted. She respected that. But she also knew that caution would not save humanity. Marcus, she said quietly, the Empire is coming. They're going to try to destroy us. Every single one of us. Our children. Our grandchildren. Everything we've ever built. She paused. Let the weight of those words sink in. If that signal leads to something that can help us fight back, then we have to take the risk. If it leads to something that kills us, then at least we died trying. But I will not sit here and wait for the Empire to decide our fate. Reeves stared at her for a long moment. Then he nodded slowly. You're right. I'll prepare the ship. Sarah turned to the rest of her crew. They were watching her with expressions she had seen before. Fear, determination, and something else. Something that made her proud to be human. Pride. She activated the ship's communication system. Her voice filled every vessel in the fleet. This is Admiral Chen. I'm about to ask something of you that I have no right to ask. I'm about to ask you to take a risk that might kill you, that might kill all of us. She paused. Let the silence build. But I'm asking anyway, because I believe in us. I believe that we are capable of more than we ever imagined. I believe that we can survive this, that we can win this, that we can build a future worth fighting for. She looked out at the stars, at the signal pulsing in the darkness, at the unknown that was waiting for them. So I'm asking you to trust me. One more time. Trust me when I say that this is the right call. Trust me when I say that we have a chance. Trust me when I say that we will not be destroyed. She closed her eyes for a moment. When she opened them, her voice was different, softer, more personal. Thank you for everything, for fighting, for believing, for not giving up. She cut the transmission. The bridge was silent. Sarah could feel her crew watching her, waiting. Then Marcus Reeves stepped forward. I'll pilot the ship myself, he said. If we're going to do this, we're doing it right. Sarah nodded. Thank you, Marcus. Don't thank me yet. We still have to survive. The mission launched 12 hours later. Sarah stood on the bridge of the Defiance, watching the star system approach on the view screen. The ship's crew was quiet, focused. They had volunteered for this mission, every single one of them. They knew the risks. They had accepted them. And now they are here. The system looked beautiful from a distance. The yellow star glowed with warm light. The gas giants were majestic. The rocky worlds seemed peaceful, but as they got closer, Sarah began to see the scars. Debris fields, broken ships, the remnants of orbital structures that had been destroyed long ago, the bodies of dead worlds. "Look at that," Reeves whispered. "The scale of it." Sarah nodded slowly. She had seen devastation before. She had seen colonies destroyed, worlds burned, but this was different. This was the work of something that had done this on a galactic scale. "We're picking up energy readings," Jackson reported. "Something in the inner system. Something active." "Active?" Sarah asked. "How active?" "Extremely. Whatever it is, it's been running for thousands of years. It's like a beacon. Or maybe a defense system." Sarah felt her heart rate increase. "Can you identify it?" "It's buried on one of the rocky worlds, deep underground. The signal is strong enough to penetrate the surface, but I can't get a clear reading on what's generating it." "Then we're going in." The ship descended toward the planet. The surface was barren. No atmosphere. No water. Just rock and dust, and the remnants of something that had once been alive. And then they saw it. A structure. Massive. Ancient. Buried deep beneath the surface, but visible through the cracks in the crust. A structure that had been built by a civilization that had been dead for 50,000 years. Sarah stared at it. She could feel her crew staring at it. None of them spoke. There were no words. "I think we found what we were looking for," Reeves said quietly. Sarah nodded. "Get a team ready. We're going in." The boarding party descended into the structure. Sarah led them personally, her hand resting on the sidearm she had not used in years. The corridors were dark, silent, filled with the dust of ages. And then they found the central chamber. It was vast, hundreds of meters across, filled with technology that made the Empire's ships look like toys. Screens that still glowed with ancient light, consoles that hummed with power, and in the center of the chamber, a holographic display. Sarah walked toward it. The image flickered to life. A figure appeared, not human, but close enough that Sarah could see the intelligence in its eyes. "The sorrow. You found us," the figure said. "We hoped you would. We hoped someone would." Sarah stopped. "Who are you?" "We were the last," the figure said. "The last of our kind. The last to fall. We built this place to warn others, to tell them what happened." "What happened?" The figure's expression changed. The sorrow deepened. "We fought. We fought for centuries. We destroyed worlds. We exterminated species. And in the end, we realized that we had become the very thing we had sworn to destroy." Sarah felt the weight of those words. "What did you do?" "We stopped. We buried our weapons. We silenced our wars. And we waited. We waited for someone to find us, to learn from us, to do what we could not." The figure gestured to the screens around them. "Everything we knew is here. Our technology, our history, our failures. Take it. Use it. But remember what we learned." "Remember what?" Sarah asked. The figure looked at her. Its eyes were old, ancient, filled with the wisdom of a civilization that had destroyed itself. "Remember that power is not the same as victory. That strength without wisdom is nothing. That the greatest threat is not the enemy you fight, but the enemy you become." The holographic display faded. Sarah stood in the center of the ancient chamber, surrounded by the knowledge of a dead civilization. She thought about the Empire, about the war that was coming, about the future that hung in the balance. She thought about what the figure had said. The greatest threat is not the enemy you fight, but the enemy you become. She looked at her crew, at their faces, at the hope in their eyes. "Secure everything," she said. "We're taking it all." She turned to leave the chamber, and as she walked through the ancient corridors, she made a promise. A promise to herself, to her crew, to everyone who was counting on her. They would survive. They would win. But they would not become the Empire. They would be better. The ship lifted from the planet's surface, carrying the knowledge of a civilization that had destroyed itself. Sarah watched the ancient structure disappear into the distance. She thought about the signal, the warning, the hope, and she knew the war with the Empire was inevitable. But the future was not. Humanity would choose its own path. Humanity would decide what it wanted to become, and Sarah Chen would make sure that whatever that future looked like, it would be worth fighting for. She looked at the stars, in the darkness, at the unknown. "Full speed ahead," she said. "We have work to do." The ship jumped to hyperspace, leaving the dead civilization behind. And in the darkness, the signal continued to pulse. A warning, a plea, a hope. The galaxy would never be the same.